Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of Women's Biz Global. Welcome to those who are just joining us for the first time. I think we're 200 plus episodes, so it's always a great time to join, listen to some of the ones that you've missed. They are always inspiring, empowering. We're always encouraging people to dream big, lead boldly, and create a lasting impact in the things that you're doing. Because why just be busy, right? We want to be proactive, intentional. We want to make things happen for a reason. I am your host, Annie Gibbins, and today we are enjoying the presence of Dr. Marshawn Martin. She's a seasoned executive leader with a deep understanding in both the profit and non-for-profit sectors. So she's just got that global, broad perspective. She's all into strategic planning, data-driven decision-making, developing high-performance sales and operational teams. Oh my goodness, you're not going to want to miss a thing in our discussion. We're also going to be talking a lot about the challenges that women face in leadership roles. And she's coming to us from Hawaii. We've just been talking about how it's wonderful to always be in summer. I'm in summer here in Australia. I know some of you are freezing in other parts of the world, but that's why I love having a podcast. We can just link up wherever we are and just share wisdom, share life together. Interesting things are always happening. So welcome today, Dr. Marshawn.
Thank you. And thank you for the invitation to join. I'm excited to chat, to talk story, as we say in Hawaii.
Talk story. Exactly. And we'll do that in English today. I know you speak Spanish as well, but we'll just keep it for the broader audience. So let me just get a bit of a background on you then. How did you first of all get into this leadership space? Why did that become your niche? But give us a little bit of the backstory too of, how did you get involved in so much business background and then decide, we really need to support women's leadership?
Oh my goodness. I don't want to take up too much time, but I will dive in. How I evolved into leadership. That was an interesting story. I moved out when I was 17. And when you're uneducated and you need to support yourselves, you tend to get into these sales roles, right? That's what can still generate income to support yourself. So I started working in the hospitality industry, working with front office sales. I was then asked to be the assistant general manager of a hotel at the age of about 22, very, very young. I had an amazing mentor. And my mentor, the general manager, actually fell ill. And at 24, he decided to step down from his position, and they promoted me to be a general manager of a small hotel at 24 years old. And that was really my push into true leadership. And, hindsight's 2020. There are so many things I learned in the process. One of the main things I think that I did incorrectly, one of my fails in falling forward here, is not leading authentically. I had a work persona, because I thought the only way I'm going to be taken seriously this young is if I just am unbelievably professional, which is not a downfall, but I wouldn't let any of my personality show through so much. After work, I was a completely different human. and now, fast forward about, 25 years or so, and what I do now with women in leadership too is really choosing to be authentic leaders. And I think that goes for anybody, right? We want to be as authentic as we can in this space. It really does just help develop others that way. How did I get into women's leadership and speaking on that? I had been in higher education working, my career slowly evolved into higher education. And I was given the opportunity to get my doctorate through my job in higher education. And at the time I was 42. I thought I was a little bit crazy. I had young children at the time, 7 and 4 years old. And, I was really contemplating taking this. And I went to my mentor and I said, am I crazy for even considering? I travel the world with my job. I have these 2 small kids. I have a very demanding career. And then putting this on my plate. And he said, you know what, Marshawn, the time's going to pass anyway. And what will you have to show for it? Hit me like lightning, tipped me over the fence. I said, and really it felt irresponsible to not take advantage of that opportunity. The program, I'm in a program that's designed to teach me to essentially be a higher education leader, a university president of the sorts. And I took a look around and in the traditional scape of universities, there was not women in leadership at a very high level, at like a presidential level. We weren't being represented. And I thought, and definitely women of color, I have Latin background. And I said, is this factual? Is this assumption that women are less capable leaders accurate? And I was completely open to both being true. We are, in fact, not as competent as men, or, that's not true. And, no surprise to you or I, it's absolutely not true. I have research, I have data. I did all this, quantitative statistical studies on the fact. And what I now am mission driven to do is share, because I had worked in higher education. I had all this access to information, and I was unaware of what we were truly accomplishing. And I feel like this reframing of women's thinking, of sharing this data, of these facts of what we're completing, will absolutely empower us further. We need to know. We need to know these facts. And now I'm just mission driven to share that in a fun way. Numbers can be boring. I get it. So I keep it fun.
I love a woman, first of all, who keeps numbers fun, because numbers tell a story, right? Numbers give us the data, and you can get drilled down to, that's going to be, boring. But actually, we need to know those numbers. We need to challenge those numbers, and we need to dig deep behind that. So I'm so glad that you actually did become a professor at the university, and you can share that and actually inform our listeners. That's right. What are the statistics? What are the real facts? We often get told, and I'm told that all the time, well, women just don't contribute to the same level. Women take time out. Women aren't as productive. And you're like, are you serious? The stats do not say any of that. Yes, we take time out, but it shouldn't be a gender issue. So I would love you to share, although you just had so many gold nuggets, I'm going to drill down in a little while. But let's just start with the facts. What are the facts of women in leadership?
Right. So, I wanted to see about competencies, right? Are we competent? And there is a general rule out there amongst leadership subject matter experts. And there are these known competencies in leadership, and there's about 19 of them. And out of these agreed upon competencies for what qualifies you as an exceptional leader, women outperformed men in 16 out of 19 of those competencies.
Wow.
Yes. So we do 80% better than most men in these areas. And so, we have to realize that not only are we doing the job, but we are doing it exceptionally well. And another interesting fact, you've heard this probably, women are so emotional. Mm-hmm. And I love this one. And I always take that as my superpower, right? And we as women, that's our superpower.
Yeah, we've got a heart. We lean in. We care. We get up about things. Yes,
right. So one of the leading predictors of leadership and being successful in leadership is your emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Do you create this culture of value, of inclusivity, of compassion, and that is all the emotional intelligence qualifiers. We exceeded that. We are high-level, emotionally intelligent human beings. That's kind of in our nature for the most part. It's a generalization to say everyone is, but women typically are. And that is a superpower in leadership that was unrecognized until more modern reports came out about that. So, there is so it's the two sides of the coin, right? We talk about leadership competencies, and those are definitely the hard numbers, the revenue-based things. Can you meet goals? Can you, empower your teams, things of that nature? And then you have the other side, those soft skills of that emotional intelligence. And so we show that we excel on both sides of that landscape. And yes. And then we can get into numbers all day long. I can share revenue numbers. And
No, I just think that's such a great way to really start our conversation of give people confidence. Oh my goodness, the stuff that you hear and the things that you tell yourself are just simply not true. All the statistics, all the modern research says women are fantastic for business because of these reasons, and I love the way you call it your superpower, because I'm all into that. I'm like, turn up, bright colors, floral dresses. I get upset about things. And I'm like, that's because, I want things to be better. I care. We've got a heart. But that place has actually changed. I note that you said when you first introduced that, like 20, when you became a manager, like a GM at 24, incredible, by the way. But it was that I've got to look in a certain way, act in a certain way, and I can be different. And that whole authentic leadership thing came about. But also it was like that for most people. Most people went, I'm the boss, got to act like the boss. What is the boss? All that sort of thing. So I think that whole journey has changed, as well as you and I and all of our listeners have changed as well. Why is it so important, though, if we look at this area that it is a superpower of women, and we are more emotional, heartfelt, purpose-driven beings, if you like, generally, why is it so opportunistic now to go, you know what, really use that as your superpower, lean into that?
Sure. So we're creating a culture, right? A workplace culture. And let's not kid ourselves. We spend the majority of our lives in the workplace. So how is that important? We are also leading a generation that finds anything other than what is currently in place unacceptable. If you're not willing to be a compassionate leader, if you're not willing to show an employee that they're valued, our employees of these generations are saying, I'm going to look for something different.
Yes.
So that's the importance. If you want to develop loyalty among your existing employees, get performance out of them, or even attract talent, we have to be the leaders that they want to work for. And therein lies, even to go back a little bit on the conversation where you said we weren't, I wasn't leading authentically. And I think it's so important for women to recognize is that, especially in my generation, us more seasoned people, we didn't have female mentors when we were up the ranks because we weren't represented in those roles very well. So we were taught leadership by men. And I've had some phenomenal male leaders, that is not in question. However, their leadership traits are different than women's. And so we were taught that, most women are taught you have to be an A-type personality to be in leadership. Let's get the job done, bullet point statements and not off the mark, but there can be a balance, right? And it's up to us now, those of us that have had some experience, to now mentor the next generations coming up, the leaders to be, and the leaders that are evolving right now, so that way they can feel that it is okay to lead in what feels natural to them.
Tap into who you are and your leadership style, and just develop that. Be comfortable with that.
Absolutely.
That's the problem. We're often not comfortable because we're told it's not the right way. Is that one of the biggest blocks?
Right. Or, we don't need to lead like men do. We can lead differently, and we lead just as effectively and maybe a little bit better in some areas. So it really is, we are now in a era where it's transformational and servant leadership. This hybrid of both leadership styles is important. And women tend to lead that way naturally. Transformational meaning we want input from everybody. We want to take everybody's input, and then as a leader, I'll make a decision based on what the collaborative input is. Yeah. And servant leadership is, you are tasked as an employee to do these things, but I'm here for you. I am here to serve you. Tell me how to help you get to your goals, because I'm only as good as what you achieve.
So beautifully.
And I think that's a little bit different than what it used to be. And so, women, we can lean into that now.
I think it's so different. If I look back over even my career, the whole concept of servant leadership is just so different. You'll turn up and go, who are you? And go, oh, I'm the CEO over this company. This is how I serve people. This is the value that they receive. This is what they're looking for. It's so different from, this is me, follow me. do it my way. It is just such a flip, really, on the way we have traditionally done things. I love that comment that you said before, be a leader that other people want to work with, because that is a gold nugget for those of you who are listening in. You want to be thinking those people who you're wanting to attract. We're into talent attraction. We want to acquire them. We want to retain them. We want to get the best value out of them, but also for them. Right? I want to know that people have had a time working for me and then they've moved on to their next step, which is going to also be valuable to them and to those they serve. And so, but that whole concept is a huge one, because people are they're very savvy these days. They know what they're looking for. Some I know, I've got clients who they'll only want to work with a company who's got a social conscience or for purpose driven or this or that or whatever. And so if you're not meeting that, you might have an excellent candidate, but they're not going to. It really has to be a win-win these days, doesn't it?
Right. Exactly right. And so we have post-COVID, the world has changed. The workplace has changed. And I know that change is not always receptive. People aren't always receptive to change, but that is the reality of today. We are living in a different climate in the workscape. And especially, let's say, the graduating freshmen right now, the graduating seniors out of college, their entire high school, college years were done remotely due to COVID. Mm. So they're used to that work environment, and that's what they want going out there. And they were very autonomous. So as a leader, if we take that kind of from the industrial era mindset of I am the boss, and because I am the boss, you're going to listen. And if you don't listen, you're fired, and we'll find someone else. That mentality won't fly anymore, because they have options. People have options in the workplace now. And so what we need to create is leaders that recognize that being in leadership is not about you. Being in leadership is about everybody else. It's not about how wonderful you are. It's your impact in making others wonderful. And really, that is what the driving force. I love to quote John Maxwell, because he says the pinnacle of any leader is the ability to develop other leaders. And I believe that to be true. And, and leadership comes in any form. It's not a formal title. I talk to my university students because they're fairly young, so many of them are not in leadership roles yet. Mm-hmm. But if you're a brother or a sister or a cousin or an aunt or an uncle or a mother or a father, you're still a leader, or a friend. You still have people look up to you. And so, however you develop that in others is really, that's leadership.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question for you. Do you recommend people spend more time getting those first couple of jobs with people who are just going to be great leaders for them, be mentored by them, watch and learn? Or do you feel it was a good experience for you just to jump into the fire, learn how to be a leader, learn on the job? Do you know what I mean? Like, people have different career decisions. And I think this is a really big one for those who are in their, early 20s and go, do I go and work with someone who's amazing and I'm just going to stretch and grow? Or I've just been given this opportunity and I can't believe it. I'm like Dr. Marshawn and go, wow, I better take it. What's your view on that?
I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer. This is another thing that I always say to my audiences or my classrooms is define your own success. That's so powerful. Growing up, we were taught that success isn't hit until you hit that president or CEO level. Yeah. It was the ultimate stretch, right? That was the zenith. And yet, as I climbed up the corporate ladder, I realized that there is so much in that arena of president and CEO that I wouldn't want the stress of daily. That was not ideal for me. Somewhere in there was, but that I didn't ever want to aspire to. And we have women that their aspiration is to be a mom and to be the head of their household. And we have other women that their aspiration is in the military or in law enforcement or in sports. Or my point is, you have to define that first for yourself, and don't chase someone else's dream, because that is soul sucking. That will drain you and crush your dreams faster than anything. If you are pursuing what someone else defines success to be for you, you're setting yourself up for failure, whether it's professionally or personally. So once you define that, then you can say, this is how I'm going to approach it. And again, I think I do believe in the unbelievably powerful component of mentorship. Mentorship is amazing. However, even if you're thrown into the fire and you have to jump into the deep end, you can absolutely, there's so many of us that were forced into that, and you find your way, but you can also find a mentor. So it can be both. And that's extremely powerful, I think, is to work with a mentor that can help you navigate these scenarios and really stretch you, and maybe give you some hindsight that they can share with you through what their process was and how they were able to do things and what worked and what didn't work. And
which is why we get to those moments, and often they're very emotional, tearful, scary. And I imagine you went to that when you were 42. I think you shared you did your PhD in higher ed at 42 with kids who are 7 and 4. So it's a huge moment, and there's a lot of pressure. And I imagine a lot of us are sitting there going, I've had those moments, or I'm in that moment now of, I've finally realized this is where I want to be. This is important to me. And I'll have to do the juggle, and there's always a juggle, but this is important. Would you, if you didn't have the same pressures, societal expectations, have done that PhD earlier, or did it just take to that time? I know I often get conversations with people or listeners, and they're like going, "Oh, maybe I'm too old now." And you're like, "No, do it. If you're lying in bed thinking about it, it's there for a reason. You want to jump on it."
Read. Yeah, my story is very unconventional in every aspect of my life. So, I had shared that I jumped into sales and was kind of, thrown into leadership pretty early on. But it wasn't until the recession in the U.S. that we had in 2008 that I realized in order to survive, I was going to have to go back to school. And I was 34 years old when I enrolled for my bachelor's degree. Wow. So, I started very late in life. It was a very unconventional route, and that's what worked for me. And that's why I say we have to all define it. If I had compared myself to someone who went straight out of high school into college, finished their doctorate right away, I would have felt like failure before I even started. So, it's okay to take a different route as long as you're still pursuing your goals. Like you said, age shouldn't even play into the equation. Absolutely not. Would I have pursued my doctorate had I not? Absolutely not. I never had that on my radar. I knew that I wanted a master's degree. I was working in higher education. So, having that opportunity was key. But I thought for what I do in higher education, I was kind of part of the administration side of things and doing the international partnerships with other universities. I thought, master's degree, I'm comfortable. But I think that there was another plan at play. And when you're having been offered it, again, I just felt irresponsible to not take advantage of it. And I'm thankful I did. Was it a challenge? Yes. And I did it part-time. That's the other thing. I did my doctorate part-time because I knew what I could take on. I wanted to be successful. And for me, being successful meant I had to do it part-time. And I'm okay with that. It took me longer. I'm okay with that.
I'm so okay with that. As a mum who had 5 children, including 2 sets of twins, I did so much part-time. But you get there eventually, right? Yes. And I love what you said there, that there's no formula to it. I even get that from a personal perspective. Should you have kids young? Should you have it later? You know what? Whenever life dictates, that moment is right for you. And sometimes it has been dictated for you, and you go with it and you adjust. And I think it's all about just leaning forward, as you said, just sort of taking things and go, okay, well, how am I going to be the best self through that? And how am I going to work around that or with that? And there's always many, many options. I love that you went from you wouldn't normally think that someone who's been into sales goes to become an academic. That's quite different size of the brain and the different energy, different focus. Shows that you have a lot of breadth. But with that means that you have such underpinning skill sets. So those of you listening in, you get so many generic skills. I'm imagining that life that you had in your 20s has significantly boosted your ability to be able to share and communicate in all the areas that you're doing that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't taken that route, right?
Right, absolutely. And that's the funniest part of my story. When I decided to go back for my bachelor's in 2008, I'm sitting at the university going through my entrance interview with my enrollment team. And during that, they were looking at my resume and saw my background in sales. And they said, we have this opportunity. We're building a new partnership development team for our university, and we think you'd be a great fit. And so not only did I start my academic journey, but I started my professional journey in higher education almost within the same week. They hired me onto their team for partnership development, and I was enrolled in college. And that's how I started my career in higher education.
I love it. That's fantastic. So those people who are now thinking, even doing qualifications in leadership, you're a professor of leadership development. What are people looking for? Those people who you're coming into, they were looking for the future jobs. They want to be leaders of the future or great leaders now. What is their focus?
As far as in the workforce, or you mean as someone?
What are they wanting to come out of it? If you do a qualification in, future leadership, excellence in leadership, what are they wanting to achieve? Do they come in going, this is the type of leader I want to be? Or do they think leadership is a changing space? Educate me to know what a future leader is going to look like or feel like.
Right, exactly. And I think that's the conversation I have in the classroom most definitely, is I encourage that lifelong learning because we are ever evolving. And the world of business is all about innovation. And that shouldn't just stop at a product or service. That should stop within or be continuing within the organization as well. When it comes to leadership, it should be evolving. We had seen decades of the same type of leadership well into, maybe the 70s and 80s, where then we turned into this more transformational servant leadership. But from, the turn of the century to almost 70 years, it was the same mindset of leadership. So, now that we see, we can progress, we can be innovative even in leadership. Yes. And so students are there. I think that they're eager to see evolution. They're eager to see. You had mentioned earlier about social responsibility. Many of my students are very much focused on that within an organization. They want to work for an organization that has that component, or at least an arm of that within the organization. And, that was non-existent in our generation. So yes. And I think, as a business, if you're not evolving in your leadership to meet that, you're going to lose. Yeah. And then as students, they have to realize too, okay, just as much as you crave these new and exciting things, the latest in technology, the latest in business, you also have to approach it with that same mentality. You also have to be the one that's doing that introspection and that development of yourself in order to be that leader.
Because otherwise you won't come across as authentic to those that you serve. Those people, if a majority of people are wanting to do business with you in a certain way, and you're not showing that you understand that or appreciate that or try to, add value in that area, you will lose for sure.
Right.
Wow. I love that. I added the word, what does it feel like? Because a lot of times people, go textbook, like you even said, there's 19 points, in this area and women are 16, and you get sort of into the data, and this is actually absolutely true. But it's kind of like that. I think really impressive leaders, high power leaders, it's the feel you get off. One, they demonstrate leadership in so many amazing ways, but you actually feel like, gosh, they're talking to you. You feel like they are understanding you. They feel like they appreciate what you're trying to achieve. It's this ability to be so positioned in that niche space, but also be 100% appreciative of the person who is, the audience, the customer, what they're actually wanting. And I think that's always a gold star for me. It's like, how do you aim to be this certain leader, and to the best of your ability and skill set and purpose and passion, but also how do you come across as just so there for the person that you are communicating with at that specific time.
Right. Exactly. I always like to share too that nobody cares about how much you know until they know how much you care. Mm-hmm. And really, if you come across as that leader where, we cannot be warm and fuzzy all day, every day. I understand that. But you're going to get more out of your staff when they know you care about them, when they know that they're valued. That's where their performance kicks in. That's where they're meeting and exceeding goals because they're invested. They're not going to want to be invested with someone if you don't care. Why should they?
Yes, exactly. You've got to lead by example. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'd love to go then a little bit deeper on the 19 points. If there's, 19 points to leadership, and we've got, women, as you said, are higher ranked in 16 of those. Is it that they're triaged based on different leaders, though? Some will come out very, type A, very, high attention to detail, or innovative, or great at, sales follow-up, and then other people might be there for the customer, really reflective, this or that, whatever. What are you don't have to go through the 19 points, but is it that leaders can actually go, there's a list of things that I want to be building, but it's all right to shift the order of them? Are they prioritized? Should you actually just be aware of those and lead, as the more you lead with your strengths and develop multiple aspects, you then become that best version of leader for yourself?
Yes. So the competencies are essentially your toolbox, right? It's your leadership toolbox. It's these 19 components, and it's anything from you're a good communicator to you're a strategic thinker. It's this width of things. And it really is more of, you're not going to be all those things every day, but yes, you know when to draw on them, right? You know when what is needed at the moment. And that is where the light is, right, for leadership. So yeah, I think that anybody that's willing to improve themselves and recognizes, this is my area of opportunity, so I need to continue to develop that. I might not be so strong in this area, or this is my strength, and I'm going to lean into that, and I'm going to share that more. That's the biggest takeaway, I think, from this research. The research that was done was with over 30,000 individuals. So it wasn't a small group. It was a very large group, varied backgrounds, varied industries, varied levels of leadership within an organization. It was a really good representation of kind of any American, right? And so it really was this good representation of true numbers.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And I love a list, and I love reflecting on them. I also know that sometimes, when you get to that other end of your career, it might be that you're just put on, positioned on that board because you are extremely high in strategic thinking, or incredibly value in, innovation or high level communication. There can be some areas that you go, you don't have to be the full pack. In certain areas, you will have them, but it's okay to specialize in a certain area if that's your niche, is what I'm saying.
Right. Yes, absolutely. I think so. And it just depends on what role you've been hired for as well. If you know that, that strategic thinking is not really, you just don't enjoy it maybe, and that's why you're not strong in that, then maybe avoid those positions that do that, that heavily focused in that. So I really do think that recognizing what you're good at or what you might not be so great at is the key to success for any leader. And whether or not, you want to develop with that or not, there's some things I think people are born, it's innate in them. And there are other things that can be developed. So if, nobody's born a phenomenal leader. We all have lived a little bit and have learned along the way. And that's the key to leadership, is really development. And so whether or not you're strong in one area or another, if you have the desire to learn how to be strong in that area, you will be. I'm a firm believer of that. And if the desire is not there, then, adjust accordingly. The true test, though, is as a leader, if you recognize that that's something that you might not be strong in, but that's what your team needs, that's really have to take a moment of self-reflection and go, okay, what am I doing?
Yeah. So I'd love to finish up with mentorship, right? You're a mentor, I'm a mentor. We're super passionate about it, but I'd love you to share with the listeners that we may have people who are at that stage, they are in those, emerging leadership sort of roles, and they're wanting to really empower the leaders under them. They want to cultivate high performance teams and culture within their organization. Those people, what should they be looking for in a mentor? Should they reach out, try to find one? Because you and I will agree that everyone needs to have a mentor. You and I both would agree we didn't have one because unfortunately we didn't have women before us in those certain positions. Right. But now hopefully you do. So we are progressing. What are they looking for?
Sure. So if you're looking for a mentor, you need to I would say take your time a little bit, do some research, get into those social scapes of the LinkedIn, Facebooks, and really start to look for those that you admire in the space that you're interested in and follow them and see if it's someone that you would want to reach out to for mentorship. And that being said, because you can only get mentorship from someone that is experienced in what it is that you desire to do, or has some insight into it. So does it have to be exact? No. But you don't want to mismatch, if that makes sense. So if you are following people, if you have some understanding of what their missions are, what their purpose is, and it falls in line with what is clicking with you, then that is someone that should be your mentor. And really, I say to any mentee is to be prepared. When you have that time with a mentor, and I think the women leaders now really do crave the opportunity to be mentors, to give back, to develop those, because it was opportunities that weren't given to us necessarily. And so we want to make sure that we're changing that.
Yeah.
But, time is high currency. And so, as a mentee, I would suggest be prepared, come with your questions ready, come, with your insight from whatever you discussed last week or last time you met, and really value that time and know what the next steps will be a little bit after, you've had a time to talk with them. So that way, there's a good cadence and a good rhythm of the times that you are meeting.
Mm. And have you found that there's such a difference, people who do paid mentoring, professional mentoring, to just finding someone who's one or two steps ahead of you? And if that's in your specific area, specific niche, and they're available to you, there's just as much value? Or is there a real difference on the professional mentors to the I'm here to help if you need me mentors?
Yeah, I think a professional mentor is more of a coach. If you're hiring a coach, then that is almost a different concept to me. That is definitely results driven. If you're investing into someone as a coach, you're looking to achieve results. Where a mentor is, you're looking to develop yourself and your business. But you're going to develop your business through your self-development, and that's what the mentor is there for, and really kind of helping you navigate that path to your own success. Mm-hmm. So yes, I think they're both valuable. I just think that they're kind of in different arenas.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The mentoring is you've got to have a personal connection. You can have a coach who's just very good and will teach you the steps of how to do something. Whereas from a personal perspective, you really need to connect with that mentor, because they're going to challenge you. They're going to challenge you on all those reasons why you have things going on in your head, your self-talk, your belief systems, or what's stopping you. You said 10 times you want to do something. Why haven't you done it? But actually they're caring about the block rather than the steps to do. Yeah. There is a difference. Oh my goodness, we could talk all day. I am so glad that you reached that stage in your life that you went, you know what, I'm going to become an academic and I'm going to start empowering others men and women particularly, but with a focus on women in leadership. We need to be continually working as a collective with men and women to do that for women, to really help us level up, because those days are gone of feeling that you're not as equal, you're not as capable. You are more than capable, and you need to write that on a little post-it note, stick it on your mirror, and just go, yep, I'm smart, I'm capable, now is my time. And then take that moment, as you've said a couple of times during this interview, to really reflect on, well, what is it that you really want to do? Who do you really want to serve? Why is this important for you? And make that emotional side your superpower, like Dr. Marshawn has told you today. I think that's a really great thing to actually, use it as a gift. It's a gift rather than a hindrance. So it's all mindset. It's all the way we perceive ourselves. But I thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Have you been solo succeeding and need a little bit of extra help? Have you ever felt the call to step into your full potential but needed guidance to make it a reality? Women's Biz Coaching is where dreams meet a roadmap, crafted just for you. With Women's Biz Coaching, you'll have a trusted partner propelling you towards the success that you deserve. Join us in turning your aspirations into achievements and toasting your future victories. Check us out today. Let's start writing your success story, one milestone at a time.